Good evening, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me, as the slide says. Welcome to our webinar this evening. Obviously, if you can't hear me, you won't be hearing me, but you'll be able to read that, and you'll be able to read the fact that you need to check your connection, and you can ask in the chat function for any technical help. We have our technical experts in there to help you if you're having any issues. So I can see various people joining. I'm just going to run through a few preparatory slides. Try and minimize distractions tonight. That's our kind of tip for you. Don't be alarmed. You're safely locked off video and off audio, so we can't hear you, we can't see you, but certainly we hope you can hear us and you can see us. And obviously we're going to be talking all things natural turf, and there is a lovely bit of very thick sward of natural turf on that slide. The chat function I've mentioned, so try and find that. Conscious we're using a different platform tonight than the one we've used historically, so people might not be used to that. So try and find a chat function. Could be at the bottom of the page, could be at the top. You might have to hover around, but it should appear. And what we would ask that you do on the chat function, once you've found that, is set that box as per the slide there to all panelists and attendees. Okay, all panelists and attendees, and that will mean everyone can see all the chat and all the discussion that we're having. The other thing with Zoom, the new platform that we're using for the first time, is that there are different views available. Okay, so try and find a view that suits you. There's obviously going to be videos of the three of us who are going to be talking. There's obviously the slides, and there is the chat function, which will be live throughout the webinar. And one thing is the chat function within Zoom appears as a pop-up. Okay, so you can move that around and get that in a place that suits you. We tend to find that down in the bottom right hand side is as good a place as any, but obviously you have the ability to move that around, and obviously just bear with us. It's our first time with Zoom. We hope it runs smoothly, but if not, just bear with us. And just to stress, we anticipate people are joining us using different devices. The Zoom platform, the webinar tonight, should work on all the kind of usual devices. Works on your phone, no problem. There's a slight discrepancy on iPads where the polls come up as a separate pop-up, so you might not be able to see them. You might have to go looking for them. But obviously Mac or PC, you should have a full view of everything. So I've got more people joining us. I can see that. It's absolutely great to see so many people getting involved. Minute to 7, so I'll just do another run through of those slides just to make sure everyone's on board. So as it says, people just joining us, if you're reading that and you're seeing my face and my mouth move, but you can't hear me, play around with your connection and use the chat function to let us know if you are having any problems, and we'll try our best to deal with them. Minimize distractions. Hopefully you'll get more benefit from the evening. We're going to be talking all things natural turf, but don't worry about your own video. You're locked on video off and you're locked on audio off, so we can't see or hear you. Find a chat function, say hello. More and more of you joining as we're just rolling through these slides. Say hello, let us know who you are. Let us know what club you're from. It's great to see people from all over the country joining us, and the numbers I can see on the counter are clicking up, which is great. And again, if you missed me say that before, find a chat function, possibly the top, possibly the bottom. You might have to hover for that to appear as an option, but once you've got it, get it up on the screen and make sure that you change the box at the bottom to all panelists and attendees, and that way you will be able to communicate with everyone involved, not just a selected group of people within the webinar. We're using Zoom for the first time, so the functionality, the layout is different from the webcast platform we've used in the past. Lots of different views. Find a view that suits you and you're comfortable with. And one thing we're conscious of is that chat function, which works in a slightly different way as a pop-up, so you can move that around. So please, again, just find somewhere that suits you in terms of where that sits. That'll give you the best experience this evening. And the last few slides now before we kick off, as we just a minute past 7. is just around this issue of the various different devices, which all should work tonight. Any issues, use the chat, let us know. But one flag within for anyone using an iPad or a tablet, that the polls may crop up as a pop-up, so you might not see them, so you might have to go looking for them. We'll do a number of polls through the webinar, so don't miss out on that. Okay, 7:07, 2 minutes past 7. Most people look like they've dialed in, so we're gonna kick off. This is our fourth webinar number 4 for Rugby Grounds Connected, and our theme for this evening is around preparing, planning, and dealing with severe wet weather and problem areas. So hopefully that's what you're expecting. If you're expecting anything different, you might have clicked on the wrong link, but that's what we're going to be talking about this evening. A little bit of housekeeping just before we get really stuck into that topic. Hopefully we're doing our best to avoid any technical problems, but they may crop up. One of the reasons if you've been involved before, we've moved to Zoom to try and step up the efficiency of the technology. But if you've got any technical problems, it can happen. The signal, famous last words, but seems pretty steady. But bear with us, be patient, and use the chat function to flag anything with us. As usual, we got a lot of great questions through the registration process, and we will be looking to address some of those in a slightly different way tonight, almost live as we run through. But if your question doesn't crop up, as always, we will pick it up, we will take it away, and we will get a response to you at some point as soon as we possibly can. And some of you hopefully will see some of your questions crop up as we run through and we talk through the webinar. One thing just to stress is we are recording these webinars, okay? So that means that if the worst comes to the worst, if technology fails, if your connection is not stable enough for you to get the full benefit, then you can access this webinar on demand, okay? And that'll, again, come back to you as a link for everyone that's registered. So we are recording, so you can, again, watch back, repeat, or if you miss it, obviously catch up with what you've missed. End time, I always smile on this particular bullet point. We want an aim to finish at 8 o'clock within the hour. We know how busy lives are and that you will have many other things to get on with. So we'll do our very, very best to finish at 8. I think we have probably been no better than average at achieving that so far. We have never run over significantly, but we have crept a few minutes beyond 8 on a couple of occasions, but we will do our best. And as always, we will do a post-webinar follow-up. So there'll be lots of resources, information, things you might hear about that will follow up in more detail. And obviously, let us know within the chat if there's anything in particular you'd like that to be. And finally, as I said, use the chat, talk to each other, ask us questions. Again, we will try and pick up some questions as we roll, but certainly any that crop up that we don't, we'll take away and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Okay, so some introductions. So I am Ted Mitchell, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm the RFU National Facility Development Manager, and I'm kind of just here to host things really and just to keep things moving along. We'd like to reintroduce to everybody, needs no introduction at all, Keith Kent, who's here with us, and we'll be hearing more from Keith later. And we're also delighted to have Ben Langdon, who's one of our Pitch Contractor Partnerships. And again, we'll be hearing a lot more from Ben as the webinar unfolds. But as always, we've got a lot of other people involved in the background. They may come into the foreground if any technical problems occur, but that is Alex Thompson, who's our technical webinar guru, who's in there making sure that things run as smoothly as possible. Alex Bowden is in the background and ready to step in if needed. And Alex will be running all our polls tonight. So we will be running a number of polls to get your views on certain things and your thoughts. And you'll be hearing from Alex as he runs through those polls. And Alex is our Facility Development Manager in the north of England. And we also have our colleague John Bendel, again in the background, who's a Facility Development Manager down in the south and southwest of England. So all those people are there. And then finally, and last but certainly not least, one of the great parts of our webinar that we think works really well is we have our pitch advisors in the chat function, able to pick up questions and provide responses where possible as we run through things. So for this evening, we have Andy Spetch, who you may have seen in our last webinar as a speaker. We have Colin Worcester, and we have Lawrence Gale. And also tonight, we're really pleased, delighted to have Simon Johnson from the Grounds Management Association, one of their regional pitch advisors, who is with us and in the chat, and I'm sure will be getting involved. And Simon, we're delighted to have you as part of the webinar tonight, and feel free to get stuck into that chat function if anything crops up. Okay, so what are the objectives for tonight? Before we get into the guts of the webinar, we want to try and help you review or establish, if you don't have one, a bad weather plan. Okay, secondly, we really want you to understand the role of basic maintenance in managing bad weather. Okay, so the idea that actually doing the basic things really well can really help us and have a big impact when the bad weather comes. The third thing will be around very practical ideas from Keith and Ben that you can do to look at specific problem areas. And then throughout the webinar, we'll be referring back to the Rugby Groundsman Connected, Rugby Grounds Connected Pitch Contractor Partnerships, okay? And it will serve as an introduction to that scheme. So finally, before we get into the guts of things, I just want to talk about how this links back into some of the other webinars that we've run. And what we always like to do is create a flow and create a connection rather than just have these standalone webinars. And tonight's really refers back to two of the webinars we've run already. The first one is the first webinar we run that we ran around the club maintenance plan, that basic club maintenance plan. So please refer back to that. If you haven't seen that, please access it on demand, because a lot of the stuff we're talking about, a lot of the stuff we're going to be hearing from Keith and Ben about that basic maintenance is covered in great detail in that webinar. And the other webinar that's really relevant and useful for this one is the last webinar we ran where Andy Spetch talked to us about a pitch usage policy, and that will obviously link to our bad weather plan. Okay, and both those webinars are available on demand. Okay, so the agenda for the evening, first of all, as I said, we're going to be talking about making plans and being prepared for bad weather. We're then going to look how regular maintenance can help us with bad weather, and then problem areas. So before we kick off, Alex Bowden, as usual, is just going to step in and ask you a quick question, just so we can establish who's out there. So Alex, over to you for our first poll.
Thanks, Ted. Good evening, everyone. So first poll, just to get a feel for who's there, as Ted says, I'm going to launch a poll now, which should appear on your screen. And we're just asking, what role do you have at your club or organisation, so we can get a bit of a feel for who's on here. So hopefully you've got a box popped up on your screen. As Ted mentioned, on a tablet or a phone, it may pop up in a slightly different place, but just have a click away on there, and we'll give it a few seconds for those votes to start to come in. Brilliant. See, good number coming in. We've got 5 of these throughout the evening, so there'll be a few other questions specific to your maintenance program and your programs that you run yourself. So got a few coming in. Great to see so far. We're 108 people on so far. So last couple of votes just seem to be coming in. Hopefully you've all found that voting function. If you were struggling with that, just pop a note in the chat and we'll try and help you. But looking at that, there's only a couple of votes not come in. So we'll close that poll now. And I will share the results with everybody so you can see what sort of makeup of people are on. So a big percentage of club grounds team members, which is great, and club committee, some paid grounds people, some contractors, we've got some suppliers and other people on as well. So a real good mix. So hopefully we'll be able to get some good questions going tonight as well. So I'll hand back over to you, Ted. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Alan. It's brilliant for us just to see who's out there. Really, really useful. So thanks for taking the time to complete that poll for us. Okay, so without further ado, Keith Kent, the man, the legend. Welcome back, sir. It's great to see you. How have you been? What have you been up to? I hear you've been back to some of your roots recently, doing a bit of work.
Yes, yeah. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, everybody who's joined in tonight. I've been watching the names flash up, and as the names have come up, I've recognised a great number, and the head, excuse me, clicks to the club, and I can see you, and it's great to be in touch with you all after such a long time. And Alex and Ted and myself and John Bendel down in the southwest there, as soon as possible, and it's worth doing, we will be back on the road and coming to see you in person. This is great, and it's going to be a great evening. But yeah, I'm keeping busy. An old friend of mine who was my Saturday lad in 1978 when I was at Leicester City, he was my Saturday boy, and he's now the head groundsman of Loughborough Grammar School. And he got a number of staff off with this, that, and t'other, and he asked me if I'd go in and help. And I've touched it like a duck to water, surprisingly. Great. I'm back on a tractor, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And I'm working with a great team of lads who are all knowledgeable, all different ages, and together we're learning. I'm learning about cricket. I've played cricket, but I've never worked on cricket, and I'm learning a bit about cricket. And hopefully my experience is helping the younger lads who are all taking qualifications as they're going along. But great to be back because groundsmen are different. We're a team. We're the best team out there, and it's great to be back with them.
Great, Keith. It's great to have you back.
Thank you. It's great to be back. Great,
and we will, as you say, get back on the road as soon as we can. And you know, it's we've missed you, so it's great to have you on board. So I just didn't want to miss the opportunity to just to let everyone know. Great friend to the RFU, great friend to Groundsman Connected, and a great friend, I'm sure, to every single Groundsman Contractor Committee member that has dialed in tonight. So yeah, delighted to see you, mate.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll move on and just reiterate the agenda. And the first thing we're going to look at, and Keith's going to talk to us about, is planning for bad weather. So before we let Keith loose on you, Alex is just going to step in and just do a quick poll about a wet weather plan.
Brilliant, thanks, Ted. So second poll of the evening is to get a bit of a feel for which of you out there actually have an agreed wet weather plan. So the poll should be popping up on your screen now. We'll just get a bit of an idea for what clubs have or don't have an actual agreed plan. Hopefully this will support some of the session that Keith's now going to go into next and give us a bit of a thought on what we can and can't do. So great, the votes are flying up. So I'll give it a few more seconds. Let those come in now. Still a few more coming in. So another couple of seconds and we'll get that closed off now. And I'll publish the results so you can all see those. So as you can see, got 29% have a plan, but 71% don't have a plan. So hopefully some of the content that Keith will now go on to will just help us to have a think about how that might align, and importantly align to the session that Andy did last time on our pitch policy and our overall maintenance plan that we covered in webinar 1. So I'll hand back to you, Ted.
Lovely, thank you, Alex. As Alex said, obviously for those of you that do have a wet weather plan, an opportunity to review and check in with what you're doing, and for those of you that don't, obviously an opportunity to think about it and to start to and develop that as you move along. So bad weather, planning for it, weather forecast. Keith Kent, over to you.
Thank you. That's great that 29% of the clubs do have a wet weather plan, and I think it's extremely important. The weather is one of the only things that we cannot control, either as a club committee man, the manager, the coach, but more importantly, the groundsman. So I feel that it's to plan ahead. When I was at Twickenham, I was very lucky. We had John Ketley, who was fantastic. But I didn't always rely on John. I always watch Country File Sunday night. If you can watch Country File on a Sunday night, it gives you an idea of what's coming. And that idea, if everybody on the committee and all the coaches and all the managers watch it, because everybody's important, whether it be the under-8s training Sunday morning, the ladies playing Sunday afternoon, or the first team Saturday afternoon. everyone's equal importance. So we've got to time things and we've got to get things right. The BBC weather forecast is second to none. It's on your screen, free of charge, and they go through the week. And in that, you can formulate a plan in your head so you know what day it's going to rain, you know what day it's going to be dry, and you may want to rearrange the activities that you are doing on your pitch. And in extreme weather, you can plan. You want to plan extreme weather so that you're not cancelling the games on Saturday. You know on Friday night what's happening. Do you need to rearrange the training? Have we got to hire their local school or an artificial pitch? These questions will become relevant as you watch the weather forecast, and get everybody involved, everybody, because in the past we've visited a fair number of clubs that the juniors have fell out with the seniors because they got there on a Sunday morning and the pitch was fine. And the only reason the pitch was fine was because the first team had called the game off on the Saturday, but they didn't know that. So they went on it thinking it was great. So we need to know what's going on, who's doing what, and we need to plan so that there is somebody who presses the button that the games are on or the games are off. And it's up to the clubs to decide who that is. Hopefully the groundsman will have a really, really big say in that. And he can tell you how we can work together and get the best out of your pitch. Because sometimes, and last winter especially during that terrible wet winter, there are lots of people who were saying that we trained on a Thursday night and we're not going to be able to play on it for the next 4 weeks. We want to avoid that at all cost. We've got to work together. And as I say, the girls, the children, and the first team are of equal importance. It's their game. It's their game at the weekend. They look forward to it, but we've got to play ball with one another.
Great, Keith. And in terms of the coach's role, obviously they're out there, they're looking after a lot of the sessions. That you'd endorse getting feedback from them and how the pitches are and how the weather is affecting them.
Yes, I think communication is the key. If the groundsman can talk to all the coaches and say, look, such and such an area tonight is still underwater, it's still soft from the weekend, can we avoid that at all costs? Even if we have to put a few tapes up, put some posts and a bit of tape across, just to remind people. We know how keen coaches are. They all want to train, they all want to play rugby, which is great. That's why we're there. But there are times where we've just got to temper what they're going to do.
Right. So I'm going to ask a quick question. So one of the other things we're going to do, again, we want to keep this moving, keep a nice pace, and use the polls, but also some questions for you to pick up in the chat function. And it's this question that we're really interested to get a debate about and hear from you on, is about actually how, who, and when do you make the decision about cancelling activity at your club? Okay, is it down to the groundsman? Is it down to the first team captain? Is it down to a committee within the club? Is it something that you look to do the day before? Is it something you look to do an hour before? And how do you communicate that? So we're really interested again in terms of this planning, this idea of using the weather forecast, of being ready for the bad weather, and how then you use that information as a groundsman. Who do you need to deal with? We're really interested to understand that. And Keith, I just ask you a quick question there around the forecast, and presumably, at Twickenham, you've never postponed a game or been forced to do that based on the weather forecast. But presumably, even at Twickenham, the weather forecast leading up to big games might mean that you plan and tweak things slightly.
Yes, I remember back in 2010 when Martin Johnson was the England manager and we were playing South Africa on the Saturday, and we'd got snow in the London area, and it snowed on the Thursday, and I rang Martin Johnson and we cancelled the captain's run for both countries on the Friday to protect the pitch for the Saturday. And I think if England can do that, all other clubs can do it, because that's protecting it for the main thing, which is the game itself.
Great. And ultimately that decision was down to you. Obviously you had to share it and run it through the team and the team managers, but that ultimately that decision was down to you.
Yeah, it is, and I think as long as you're honest with people and you say, look, I've had this weather forecast, there's snow line on the ground at the present, for us to clear the pitch and you to train on a Friday for an hour and a half. South Africa, you've got to be fair to both sides, to train for an hour and a half. You're on the pitch for 3 hours when you could do a lot of damage. Can you train elsewhere? And I promise you that the pitch will be fine Saturday. Martin Johnson says, yeah, it's a no-brainer. That's what we'll do.
Great. Perfect. So yeah, so please just use that question. Let us know what you think. I can see the chat is moving. It's great for us just to hear that, and obviously for you to talk that through yourselves and find out some good practice out there and any issues that people have with that decision making about postponing training, postponing matches. Okay, so the planning thing obviously refers back to the webinar with Andy Spetch in terms of how you can write that down and how you collate that. But I think the key messages from Keith there are coming through loud and clear, which is, real simple stuff. Use the weather forecast, plan ahead. Don't be afraid to have the difficult conversations with the rest of the club about managing usage, managing pitch space, and even potentially postponing when you've, number one, got to look after your pitch. So we'll move now into the second part of the agenda where there's lots of information, where we're really looking at the role regular maintenance and good quality regular maintenance has in terms of preparing you for when the bad weather comes. Again, Keith has rebranded himself as Aeration Keith for the purposes of social media. So again, Keith, we've got a few slides, a few images here. It'd be great for you just to talk to us about aeration, the importance of it, and how it can help us when that bad weather comes.
Yeah, I can do that. As aeration, to me, is the key to having good winter sports pitches. It's important that we get the pitch so that it can breathe and that it's going to drain any excess water away quickly. And we want it to be draining all week. It's not just about Saturday morning so we can play Saturday afternoon. We need to put in place an aeration program. That's Ian on the Twickenham pitch with the Sysis multi-tiner, a fabulous machine that spikes 4 inches deep and will get any surface water away for us. Can I have the next slide, please, Ted? That is allied with a deep aeration, which busts up the compaction down below. Used hand in glove, if your water is draining to 4 inches deep and you've also aerated a month before with a deep tine aerator, they connect up and you connect in the top surface with hopefully the drainage below. So using both tools is vital. I understand the cost of verti draining can be excessive and you've got to be careful, especially at the moment. But I think that if we can verti drain twice per year, once in the spring when we do the renovation, and again this time of the year as we're going into the wet, dark winter months, I think your pitch will be in a lot better condition than it would have been if we hadn't have done so. Next slide, please. All sorts of things you can put holes in pitches. That's the mega slit, once again from Sysis, not an expensive bit of kit, and you will never wear it out. You might wear the blades out, which are replaceable, but you cannot break Sysis equipment. It's absolutely brilliant. And aeration is the key. Would you agree, Ben? Do you do lots of aeration as a contractor on our rugby pitches up and down?
Absolutely, yeah. We've got various means of aeration. This time of year, I'm doing a lot of shock waving, linear aeration, which is phenomenal in the fact that it leaves the slits and you can actually sort of direct the water off the pitch to other areas that you want. I really would only really recommend that up until my rule of thumb is shockwave up till Christmas and verti drain afterwards.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. And I think, as I say, the aeration comes in so many forms and so many varieties, whether it be a slitter, a spiker, even a hand fork. If you've got a problem area, hand fork it. But on the whole, verti draining allied with slitting and multi-tining is the way forward. Would you agree with that, Ben?
Absolutely, Keith. I mean, it was explained to me a long time ago when I sort of started out, was an inch of water on the surface will completely ruin a game. You're not playing at all. An inch of water 2 inches under the surface, you're playing.
Yeah.
You know, it's that simple. Anything that you can do to move that water from the surface, whether that be getting out there on the morning or the, you know, the week up to it with a fork and just putting holes in your bad areas. I appreciate it's a tough thing to do. I know clubs that have had drills with long drill bits on them, and they've sat there and drilled, you know, deep holes into the ground. Not great on your back, I must admit, but you know, if the money's not there to get, you know, someone like myself in another contract around the country, if the money isn't there to do it, there is a lot of things that you can do yourselves to really help out. One, I'm sure you'll mention later with the post hole borer.
Yes, we'll mention that.
Yes, indeed. There's a few questions in the chat, gents, about the shockwave. Keith, is that again something that you would suggest is useful?
Yes, I would agree entirely with what Ben said. Horses for courses. I wouldn't use it in the spring, because if the soil were to dry out, it would crack and you could cause yourself another problem. But this time of the year, when the soil is moist and there's lots of wet weather about, if you angle it down a hill or across the slope, you can get the water away that much faster. And it does shatter any compaction down below. And it's a great tool. Like Ben said, verti-draining at the time of the remedial works in the spring is the way forward. That's the best thing. And as an option, you could either verti-drain with a tines, deep tines, or the linear decompactor, and they will both do a great job for you, both of them.
Brilliant. So we're going to pick up some questions now that have been registered with us as people signed up for the webinar. And the first question is from Phil Muntus from Rotherham Phoenix Rugby Club. And Phil's question is that if you're only able to afford to have your pitches verti-drained once a year, when is the best time to carry that out? Keith, I'll throw that one to you.
Yeah, I think that Ben will agree with me. If I could only do it once a year, I would do it around about now. Depending on what part of the country you're in, if you're in the northeast or the northwest, you're having more rain than what you would be on the southwest. So time it so you aerate with a verti-drain just before you know the wet weather's coming in. So it might be in September in the northeast, and it might be this time of the year, early November in the southwest. But if I could only do it once, I would do it now. Would you agree, Ben?
Absolutely, and the key is, and this goes back to the start with watching the weather, and you know, I know we can't see accurately too far in, but if you're seeing some really dense areas of rain coming in, if you're seeing a lot, say sort of towards, you know, the end of this week, anything else, try and get it done before. You know, I know it sounds easy, but don't put that phone call off to the contractor. Say, right, I want, you know, and if they can get in, you know, now, as you know, before that weather comes, because there is an awful lot of things, especially with the heavy machinery that comes with verti-drains with shockwaves. There's a lot of things that will stop us doing it. That's the key. If it does get too wet, we're going to do more damage, you know, than good. So get it planned when you do your spring renovations. You know, say, right, let's look at booking this in now. Let's say mid-September. And then come mid-September, then you make the phone call to the contractor and you say, right, we're in good weather at the minute, you know, so let's give it a couple of weeks. And then you speak to them again a couple of weeks, but you constantly keep it in there, sort of penciling it in the diary, you know, leave it ideally as late as possible, but not too late, as I say.
Yeah.
Great.
Remember, only ever go on your pitch when it's suitable to go on and you're not causing any damage, which is what Ben's saying. But as a second thought, and I always do it, and Chris Parry at the grammar school has done it this year, put an autumn feed on just either before or after you're going to aerate, because if them roots, and it's warm here in the Midlands, them roots are still growing. If you've got some fertilizer 4-6 inches down, the roots will chase after them in this weather at present. So you've had an aeration and you've got roots going deeper, which will help us improve our pitches throughout the winter. So hand in
Right.
glove, if we can afford a fertilizer application at the time of the verti-draining, then that's the way we should go.
Great,
And
great. I'm sure Phil is. Oh, sorry, go on, Ben. Yeah, just wrap that one up.
Just to step in on the fertilizer there as well. I get asked an awful lot, how often would you fertilize? And in an ideal world, you know, you're at sort of Twickenham standards, you're at Premier League football standards, where they're chucking stuff down every couple of weeks. You know, but it's a real plan in there. They're adding stuff to take stuff away, to add other things and everything else. But you know, fertilization for me is absolutely key. And what I do see a lot being on the sort of ground with it as well is people will very often try and save the money there. Now, if you're already paying someone to put fertilizer down for you, or you're lucky enough to have the equipment yourself, spend a little bit extra of money on your fertilizer, because you're not talking a huge, you know, if you're talking on a rugby pitch, 40 grams a square meter, you're about, I think off the top of my head, 12, 13 bags. So it's probably worth spending an extra $5 or a bag or something on it and getting, you know, a slow release, a 3, 4, 5 month release fertilizer, but something of a good quality. If you really skimp on the fertilizer, you are just, you know, you're putting it down for the sake of putting it down more often than not.
Yeah, I agree.
Great. Okay, excellent. So
Ted, I've just read it as I'm talking. People are asking what fertilizer should they use. As Ben said, a slow release autumn and winter feed at this time of the year would be absolutely spot on and what your grass needs. Because if it were to be warm all the way through to Christmas, your grass will need nutrients to keep it growing and to keep fighting back against the games and the training. So the more nutrients we can have in the soil available, the better the pitch will be.
yeah, great. And a point certainly worth making. Apologies for nipping in there. Just obviously trying to keep the pace moving. I'm sure I hope Phil is happy with that response to his question, and I'm sure he is. So another question that's come in is from our pitch advisor from Charlton Park and Groundsman Connected pitch advisor down in the southeast in Kent, Colin Worcester. And Colin's question, Keith, is a question that we hear quite a lot. Obviously you've looked through, you know, aeration, you've looked at different ways that we aerate and decompact, and Colin's question is, what are the types are the best, the deep tine, the linear, or hollow coring? And it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on that.
I think it's horses for courses, the time of the year and the weather conditions and the reason that you're doing it. In the spring for renovations, I would say that the decompaction with a deep tine aerator is number one. You can use a hollow corer at that time of the year, either with top dressing of sand, remove the cores and put top dressing of sand on in a soil exchange to make the top better draining, or some people hollow core and then chain arrow or brush the cores until it goes to soil again and they brush them down the holes. In the main, I wouldn't ever use a hollow core after August. No way, because it's too wet and you'd struggle. Even this week at the school, we've had morning rain and we're just struggling. I wouldn't like to be moving cores. Linear, as we've said, September, October, November into December, fantastic. Especially if you've got a slope on the pitch or it goes uphill and down. It just follows them lines and it's brilliant. So I would say it's a mixture. It's a concoction of keeping on top. If you've got your own little slitter or a multi-tiner, get on as often as you can. Get a contractor in with the verti-drainer or the linear type in the autumn, and be careful of the hollow corer at this time of the year. You're the contractor, Ben, how would you go about? What do you get most requests for at this time of the year?
This time of year now, it's linear aeration for me. It's shockwave. I'm sort of Herts area, so a lot of our work's Herts, Beds, Bucks, Berkshire, Middlesex. So we're generally quite heavy clay, a lot of the pitches that I deal with. So the linear aeration, it holds nicely. You know, if you imagine the channels, and it should be one uniform channel all the way down, they will hold open nicely. And at this time of year, you're near enough guaranteed rain through, you know, November, December, January, February. So it's not a real issue. The thing that you've got to be careful of with linear aeration is if you do it wet going into dry, it can spit, and it can very aggressively spit, especially if you're on sort of heavy clay. You'll end up with some seriously large sort of areas in there.
Right.
Yeah, as I said earlier, linear up to Christmas Day, switch everything over on the machines. No, I'm at home. It's Boxing Day, I do it, and then everything over on the machines, verti drain for the rest of the year, or air injection. I'm lucky enough to have an Air 2 G2, really nice lightweight machine for when it does get wet. So I know a few people rent those out as well. Save yourself some money at the clubs. Rent them out. It's not the most particularly interesting job. I'll put it out there. You are just walking behind the machine, pressing 2 buttons for days on end. But if you can get your hands on one, it's a pretty serious bit of kit.
I've got to say that the Air 2 G2 and the OxyShot, which is a same different machine, we do get. I use the Air 2 G2 both at Twickenham, and we use this at Bisham Abbey for the ladies to train, and it made a vast difference to the pitch. It really livened the pitch up, and it's amazing that when you get that air in the soil, how your pitch greens up. You think you fertilise it, and all you've done is aerated it. So aeration is doing another job for you, not only draining it, but improving the standard and the quality of the grass.
Absolutely. The Air 2, I'm very local to Tring Rugby Club. I played there for 25 years. So one Saturday morning, President's Day, had a phone call early morning, actually, phone call from the groundsman who I'm obviously friendly with. He said, Ben, look, this game's off today. President's Day, we've got 200 people for lunch, So I said, right, up there, grab the Air 2, oiked him off with it. And I mean, there was 2 inches of standing water at the bottom half of the pitch. It was an absolute nightmare. Come pitch inspection, it was playable. Come kickoff, the ball was actually completely missed off the kickoff and bounced back over people's heads. Now that would have landed in one of the wettest areas on the pitch. So that shows you really how quickly it can move the water, machines like that. Obviously not everyone's got one available to them all the time, like luckily Tring did. But that does really go to show how quickly they can work. And because they're a self-propelled push-along machine with completely slick tyres, you can pretty much do it in near enough any conditions as well. So if you do get to the point, which hopefully we won't this winter, like last winter, I ended up having to cancel a lot of verti draining work last winter because I just couldn't get tractors on things. I couldn't, without doing too much damage, couldn't get any tractors on anything. So the Air 2 came in and, and did the job, minimal damage, but massive benefits, absolutely massive benefits. So, and as I say, you can rent them. You can rent them off a fair amount of people, quite a lot around the country as well. So, it might be worth having a look or getting your local contractor to come in and do it for you.
The technology now is getting so good, and like you're saying, Ben, waterlogged pitch, and you can get a machine onto, you won't get a verti drain, you won't get it out of the garage. We're talking about being a bit money saving. A machine that gets overlooked, which is fantastic, is the mole plough. Sometimes in the right soil, running a mole plough through it in August, September will give you a bit of a drain run all the way through the winter. And once again, using a slope, a hill, run it into a dike, it just absolutely works for you. And we've had a lot of success up and down the country with people who have used a mole plough. And you can hire them or you can buy them, and it does a hell of a job for you.
Great. Brilliant. Colin has got more than his money's worth for that that response there. I can see from the clock behind Ben's head that time is ticking. So again, apologies to interrupt. I'm just going to step in, but I do want to just give you the chance, if you can perhaps just be a little bit, get the pace up a little bit in terms of this question from Simon Bond, so we can move on. We've got a lot of ground to cover. And Simon's question is, to what extent does aerating with different size tines matter when slitting a pitch or spiking a pitch? And what is the ideal depth? So Keith, I'm just going to ask you if you can, just to give us a quick response to that.
Yeah. Good evening, Simon. when you're slitting, you cannot slit too much, in my honest opinion. The tines that you use, it is great if you can use different size tines and slits, because I know it sounds daft, but if you were to spike forever and a day at 6 inches deep, eventually you would create a pan at 6 inches deep, because the spike is going in and rubbing the ground and making it firm. So what you need to do is spike at 4 inches with a multi-tine and then put the slitter on at 10 inches. Or when you vertidrain 1 year between 9 and 11 inches is what Ben would recommend. And then the next year, go to 7, 8 inches, so that you're not creating a pan. So it does matter, but just vary it and to what depth you would do. Would you agree with that, Ben?
Absolutely, yeah, just varying it is the key, just moving water off the surface. If you can only do it 2 inches, do it 2, and then in a few weeks it will get down to 3. And if it's overly compact, then you've got to work down the profile. Even with the big machines, sometimes you just can't get down because it is so compact.
Great stuff.
Another good machine is the Procore. Another one that's come from the golf world, and we use it on Twickenham. And it's a light machine, and you can get it on in all sorts of conditions. And the Procore, once again, it's got a fatter tine. You can get them 9 millimeters, and it makes a hell of a hole, 4 inches deep. Just a great machine on the market.
Great, brilliant responses, gents. It's fascinating listening to it. And Simon, hopefully that's helped you. So we're going to do a quick poll, hopefully moving these along quite nicely and quite quickly. And Alex Bowden is going to take us through it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ted. So going to launch another poll, which might get you doing a bit of maths in your head, getting a bit of thinking, but we just want to get a bit of a feel for how much people are rating the pitches. So based on this calendar year, I'm going to launch a poll which will appear now. So how many times have your pitches been rated this calendar year? So lots of responses coming in, which is brilliant. So those that joined us on webinar 1 will remember we asked this on that one when we went through the day-to-day areas, just to get a bit of feel. So hopefully we'll get a bit of an idea for how things might have changed since that's going back to June when we ran our first one of these. So responses are still coming in thick and fast. So I'll give it another couple of seconds. Hopefully everybody's finding that okay. Brilliant. And I will bring that one to an end. Oh, still a couple more coming in. Here we go. So I'll bring that one to an end now, and then I will publish the results so that we can all have a look at that. So great. So it's a higher percentage there is 3 or more, which is really positive, at least once. So there's some good information there, and I will hand back to Ted. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks, Alex. And the polls are just fascinating. They're in their own right. We love the webinars, but we really appreciate you taking the time to complete those, because the results are just so interesting for us and can help us to base lots of things on as we move forward. So the next thing, chain harrowing. Keith, one of your favorite, most underrated machines. We just got a couple of pictures here for you just to talk briefly about chain harrowing, how that can help us prevent issues, reduce issues when the bad weather comes.
Yeah, the chain harrows are a tool that's about 200 years old, and not many people use them now, but they're a machine that do a hell of a good job, especially on local community rugby clubs, because they don't cost a lot of money. And you can never wear them out, and it doesn't matter what you hit if somebody's left a peg out or something. And what they do is they do so many jobs. The one that's on the screen now is upside down. I would use that if you've got a bad area on a pitch that's a farmyard gate, so to speak, and as it's drying out, especially in March going into April, when the March winds are drying the crust out, you can knock the divots about and level areas off, create a tilth, turn it so that the spikes are in the air, and then chain arrow again. You will level the pitch off. The chain arrows do a fantastic job for us. They stand the grass up after usage, which is important, because in the winter months there isn't enough sunshine to give it photosynthesis. It knocks about worm casts, it replaces divots. it helps maintain the levels, but best of all, at this time of the year, it gives a pattern that you would absolutely die for. You could see it from the moon, especially on a wet, dewy morning. It is incredible. So the chain arrow is a much overlooked tool. Would you agree, Ben?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And the thatch removal of it as well. It's knocking out thatch and everything. And then if you can go and cut over the top of it, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, a machine that doesn't cost a lot of money at all.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and it's amazing. You find them discarded in the long grass occasionally, and bring them back into use, and they can have a great impact. And then just to, obviously, that's the Decisis quadruplay. That idea of brushing and grooming. Again, can you just give us a few thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that the quadruplay is the groundsman's adjustable spanner. It's got 4 tools which you can use in one pass, which is a little slitter on the front, a star slitter, a rake behind it, in this instance, a roller and a brush. I would always say, do not roll. Never roll your pitch. Keep your roller off it. The heaviest thing you put on the pitch is your mower. And the key to the quadruplay is those keys. Those are handles. They're keys, and they lift and put down each implement. So you could be using one. Last week at Loughborough Grammar School, I was out with the quadruplay, and I was only using the star slitter just to open the top up. But I do know that Chris uses the brush and the rake at certain times of the year. And the glory about the roller is that you can have it just kissing the grass. And it's important. The brushing and the grooming helps prevent thatch, helps to create a tilth when we want a tilth, and it helps to maintain the pitch and its levels. A fantastic machine, the quadruplay. If I could give every rugby club in the country one bit of kit, I would give them that. Ben, you'd like it as well, don't you?
If I was a sort of a groundsman, but day-to-day groundsman, again, I would fight tooth and nail to get one of those. I think it's one of the best bits of kit ever made.
There we go. Can't say fairer than that. Fantastic. So you probably know, just skipped over a poll there. Just we're going to keep the pace up and try and focus on the content. So I'm just going to talk to you very briefly now about pitch contractor partnerships and the role they can play in everything we do. So some of you might have heard of the RFU Pitch Contractor Partnerships, and really what they are contractors that out there that the RFU works with on a kind of semi-formal basis, where we will signpost clubs to those suppliers, those partners. And really what they do is they support clubs in really providing what we consider to be high quality pitch maintenance services. Okay, and that's the real focus of this program that we're rolling out, the best quality that is out there. And also, obviously, what we want to do is competitively priced rates. So we want rugby clubs really to get, we want to be able, when we're giving them advice through Groundsman Connected, through these webinars, our utopias, then to be able to signpost them to trusted contractors, pitch contractor partnerships that can carry out all the advice and information they've been provided at a very high quality standard at a competitive rate. Okay, now that's something that we don't have coverage of across the country. That's an aspiration that we will do. It's something that's evolved gradually over time in different areas, and it's something obviously on hold at the minute with everything that's going on, but certainly when we're getting into next year and into the spring, it's a program we'll be looking to develop and enhance. So keep an eye out for those in your area. And obviously, if you're interested to know where they might be in your area, use obviously the chat function to let us know. But away from here tonight is drop an email to groundsmanconnected@rfu.com and we can let you have that information. And obviously tonight we've heard a lot from Ben, so I won't labour too much. But Ben's company is Total Sports Ground Solutions, and they're based in Tring, and they do lots of work with rugby clubs in Hertfordshire, in Bedfordshire, in Middlesex, in Berkshire, And it's great for us in those areas when we're trying to support clubs to know we can signpost to Ben and Ben's team to be able to follow up and deliver some of the advice that we've been given. And obviously the stuff we've been talking about today, and you've heard from Ben, the day-to-day maintenance, clearly he can help with that. And one of the other things, we want contractor partners to be over and above just providing the services. So working with clubs on budgets and trying to help them get best value for their money. And again, Ben, I'm conscious of time, but you just want to give us an example of where you've maybe gone into a club and worked with them on the budget so that you can maximize what they're able to invest?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone on this group will know that it's not an endless pit of money. You've got to be in the fair few very lucky ones that have got I want to say a sugar daddy, but it's probably the wrong terminology. An investor in the club that will just put anything in. I appreciate they're very, very few and far between. Now, a lot of what I do, and I've said this quite openly with a lot of people, is managing expectations. So, people are coming in and spending a lot of money, and I appreciate it's a lot of money. Getting a general pitch renovation with a load of sand put down, you're about £5,000 to £6,000. That's a lot of money for a lot of rugby clubs to spend. So a lot of my job is I'll go in and offer like a 3-tier program. So Pinner Rugby Club we're working at recently, they've had some drainage that's failed, it's all dropped, so it became a dangerous surface in the end, unplayable basically. So we went in and said, right, I said, don't tell me how much money you've got, but what I'll do is I'll put a bronze, a silver and a gold package in. So the bronze was basically just patch it up, root zone in there, patch the bits up, and then overseed, and you're away. It'll get you playing again, The silver was a full scarification of the pitch because thatch was a real issue there. So full scarification of the pitch, full overseed, full fertilised, plus everything filled. And then the gold was a full Coro. Coro is a phrase mode, just basically just removes the whole surface, top dress with 150, 170 tons of root zone, get all of the levels back perfectly again, overseed, fertiliser plan, aeration plans, and everything there. They went for the silver in the end. So it's very, very much varying things, and with a lot of this, there's a lot of things you can do for not a lot of money, which we've sort of touched on here. There's a lot of things that you can do just to make it good, and it does really come down to what you want out of it. If you want Twickenham, we can get you Twickenham, but you need to pay Twickenham prices. That's the long and short of it. But there's a lot of things that we can do, especially at the bottom, at a general club level, that will make a huge difference and really don't cost that much money at all.
Right.
So it's about finding a good contractor. It's about finding someone that will give you all of those options and talk you through all the options and everything else, and going and doing that. So
brilliant, great. Thanks, Ben. That's a great summary, and it's a great collaboration we have with you in those areas, and we're really pleased with how it's going, and we're delighted you've joined us tonight. So again, we're going to skip the poll, but I would, as Keith just takes us through the final section, I would like to just chuck this question out there for you to run through in the chat. And really, it's just about the tasks you're planning to do over the next 4 weeks whilst the pitches aren't in use. Obviously, we're in this lockdown situation, which none of us want to be, and we'd much rather be seeing rugby played and the pitches being used. But as they're not, a few questions came in about what can we do to help improve our pitches, take advantage of the situation we find ourselves in. So rather than refer that one to Keith and Ben, be really interesting to hear from everyone out there if there is anything you're planning to do over the next 4 weeks whilst the pitches aren't being used. So we'll leave that in the chat for you to pick up, and then Keith is just going to take us through the final section around problem areas and specific examples and advice he can give on that. So Keith, we've got a couple of slides and then some examples of clubs you've been to. So would you like to take us through that before we finish?
Yeah, of course I will. Yeah. as I said earlier, the hand fork in your hardware areas, you know, rugby is such a random game and random chaos sometimes. And you can have a bad area anywhere on the pitch where there's been rucking and mauling or scrummaging. If it's looking particularly bad, go out and alleviate the compaction in the first instance, divot the pitch and put some holes in it with a hand fork. We recommend that you have some sand on site, and it's important that you get the right sand. We have an agreement with Mansfield Sand based here in the Midlands, who will deliver anywhere in the country, and he will give you a price. The sand's the same price, it's the haulage that costs, but you have to use the right sand. Sharp sand's not the right sand. It's totally wrong shaped. We need an angular or a rounded sand so that water can pass through it. If you were to hand fork and fill all of those holes with sand, it will drain that much better. If you have problem areas, can we have the next slide, Ted? This was Penryn. John Bendel and I went down, and as you can see, earlier this year, it was in quite a bit of a state. And I recommended that they use the post hole borer. If you were to bore down 4 foot deep, I'm sorry, I'm using old money for the measurement. If you went down 4 foot and filled it to within 4 inches of the surface with a 10mm rounded stone, which you can get from B&Q in ton bags, fill it up and then cut a 4-inch turf from off the pitch and put on top, you have got a sump in your pitch. As you can see, Penryn went to town on this because their pitch was in a state having gone through last winter. I've seen pictures of it this summer and it looks absolutely superb. So it's important that you use the right sand. The wrong shaped sand will not drain, but the post-hole borer is as cheap as chips, and we've had success at Penryn, Alton Rugby Club. I was joking earlier, Alton Rugby Club lost night after night of training and they lost games. We introduced the post-hole borer and they grew grass. I'm not claiming any of the credit, but they won the league that year. So that's all I'm saying. Ted, next one, Ted. Can we check the drains? If somebody's put a drainage system in, there's usually a manhole cover somewhere with the drain. There's some, and it's the silt trap. If you get that up and the water's running, you know your drainage is working. Very often it might pay you in the summer months to flush the drains through, just to get rid of any silt buildup that may be in the pipes, but also to see which pipe's doing what. Very often we go in and the clubs are not sure what pipe is going from where to where. So if you can, get somebody with a knowledge of the club who might have a plan, have a look where your drains are, and you might be able to find out that that wet area is wet because you haven't got the drain or it's blocked. Sometimes tree roots around the side of the pitch can disrupt them. So try and flush them through, but I would sooner you do that in the summer months when you're not going to damage the surface for playing on. One of the ideas that we had, and I pinched it from a famous groundsman, Stevie Braddock at Arsenal, he hand forked his goal mouths and then filled them with using a watering can with kiln dried sand. You imagine a hole 7-8 inches deep filled with sand. How much quicker is that? You can use tarpaulins to cover the bad areas if you got wet weather. Once again, looking at your forecast. And it is short term, but it might just save you having 20 mil of rainfall on a really, really saturated area, and it enables you to play the game the next day. So have a look at the best ways that you can. These are great. Is that all right, Ted?
Yeah,
Ben, Ben, have you got anything to add to that, mate, that you might?
No, I mean, going back with the kiln dried thing, I have a machine called a drill and fill, which I'm sure you've seen them, very, very, very expensive bit of kit from America. And in effect, on the drill and fill head, you've got 24 drill bits. We'll drill all in at one time, 3/4 inch, drill all in at one time, and then it will backfill them with kiln dried sand. phenomenal machine that works a charm, and we're still seeing 4 years later, you know, really positive results from stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, all I'm doing with that, in effect, is a 3/4 inch drill bit, which you can pick up from any B&Q, stick it on a battery drill, stick the holes in yourself, and I use a small little funnel, like a fuel funnel, obviously not with fuel in it, and stick that in, and then, yeah, kiln dried sand. You can pick kiln dried sand up in 25 kilo bags, backfill that hole, and as long as the top's kept open, as long as you don't get too much of a build up of thatch on the surface or anything, as long as that surface is open, you've just in effect built yourself a mini soakaway.
Yes.
You know, if you put 20 of those, 50 of those, however much your back and your battery will take, basically, in bad areas, it will work. It does work a charm, and that's very cheap. Very cheap, you're talking there.
Great. Thanks, Ben. And just a note there as well, going back to our first webinar, one of Jim Buttard's things around taking images, take photos, and remember how things were, how things looked, where certain locations were. Again, it's another really useful tip. And there's a great photo, Keith, you're looking quite cold there, up in Alnwick, obviously demonstrating you really, you know, we did used to get to all parts of England. So there's a number of other questions there. I'm not going to read them out. We hope they've been covered. We believe they've been covered from Garant and Salmians, from Chris at Bingham, from Dave at Harrogate, and from Celine at Totnes down in Devon. We believe the content of the webinar, we wanted to flag you, we wanted to acknowledge your questions. We believe the content of the webinar has covered them, but let us know if they've got any follow-up questions. We will pick those up away from this evening, because obviously time is ticking, and give you some other responses to them. But we wanted to acknowledge and thank you for the questions that you sent through. So we have covered a huge amount of ground there. We've run slightly over, but I didn't want to stop Keith and Ben, because obviously it was fascinating stuff throughout. So I'm just going to recap a little bit, and we won't be too much longer. So in terms of the objectives, we just want to revisit them as a bit of a summary, and ensure really that we've covered those off. So the first part of the session was around helping you to review or establish your bad weather plan. Okay, so use of weather forecast, writing down plans and programs, and having those conversations around moving fixtures, pausing training, and managing the site. And that's the first part of the session around be prepared. The second part, obviously, hopefully we want you to go away and understand the relevance, not just the basic maintenance and the concept which we talked around, but also that fundamental fact that if you maintain your pitch really well, if you get the basic maintenance working very efficiently, then that will have the biggest impact on when bad weather comes. Get that right, and we're all going to be in a great place. Third thing was the last part of the session around you guys receiving some ideas from Keith and Ben around the boreholes, around the hand forks, around the tarpaulin, around the taking photos and comparing. So understanding that, yes, the general maintenance is important, but identify difficult areas, identify problem areas, and hopefully we give you some ideas there that are going to enable you to manage them. And obviously throughout we've had the thread of Ben, and I did a brief, covered a brief slide around Groundsman Connected Pitch Contractor Partnerships. So that's what we set out to do, and hopefully you're satisfied that we've covered most of those, and the questions you've asked have been answered effectively. So really, next steps: review your plan, create a plan if you don't have one. Ask us for help if you need it, and then obviously share that plan with the rest of the club and with the people that are relevant at the club. And as it says there, talk to your team, develop that plan. It's something that we need to do together, as the slide said, and don't feel isolated. Talk to us and we can help. Obviously, we are great friends at the Grounds Management Association, obviously have the online level 1 and have recently developed a new online level 2. So if you want to move into that direction, you want to learn more, want to look perhaps in a more formal environment, then please, we would thoroughly encourage you to go and check out the GMA level 1 and 2 online sessions. Really useful courses. And then finally, obviously today is webinar 4. We hope you've enjoyed it. And our next webinar is in January. So perhaps the final thing within the chat is we really like to hear from you in terms of any suggestions you've got for what the next webinar topic might be. And we certainly will listen carefully to that and obviously confirm the details and the date and everything else you need to know as soon as we can. So all that's left for me to do is thank everyone that's been involved tonight. So everyone behind the scenes, Alex and John, the pitch advisors, and obviously Keith. It's great to have you back. As I said, it's been fascinating hearing from you again, and Ben just complimenting that and giving us a different perspective on it has been absolutely fantastic to hear. And finally, and most of all, you know, we're really grateful. We've had a massive number of participants tonight. You've been really active, taken part in the polls, really been active in the chat. We've asked you some questions that we know we've been picking up some feedback on. So we're really grateful for your continued interest. We'll try and make these as interesting as we can, make them as lively as they can be. So we really hope you've enjoyed it. We will be clicking a button that will make us disappear soon from the screens, but we will still be around in terms of you being able to contact us through the Groundsman Connected website, through social media and all those platforms. So apologies we're slightly late. We really hope you found it useful. We'll leave it there and no doubt see you and speak to you soon.